Welcome back. It's Tuesday. Welcome and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are on your own screen. And we are happy to have you with us. And today we have, even that we are online, a topic which is focusing more to the in-person events and the opportunities we would like to discover, rediscover, and would like to talk with our special guest, Andreas Schuster, about unlocking the power of fairs and in-person events, why they are so essential for the CRM software decision-making process, or to put it a bit broader, general decision preparation and making of, if it's a software decision for ERP, CRM, or for instance, for a larger investment for a company, if you would like to buy some new machinery. Welcome, Andreas.
Thank you, Alf. Thanks, CRMKonvo, Marshall, Thomas. Always a pleasure to be in your show.
Great to have you.
Great to have you again. Welcome again.
And last time we talked about the return of investment, which is also a very interesting topic. And I would just give you a hand in giving a short introduction. Andreas brings over 24 years of expertise in his various roles, encompassing sales, customer success, project management, finance across renowned organizations in different international locations. He has consistently demonstrated expertise and leadership in his fields. His skills in ERP, CRM, customer engagement, process improvement, and business strategy make him a value asset in any team or industry. So to say, he is a valuable guest and expert. And this is the reason why we embrace him in a certain amount of time and have him regular on our screens here, together with you. And would you like to add some stuff, or just should we go for a Kickstarter, how things have developed from the part 2019 to 2020 to today, at a sudden when we had no more in-person events?
Thanks for the introduction. There's nothing I could add. So thank you.
You haven't blushed. Yeah. That is good for me.
I have, maybe offset by the lights. What has changed? 2019. I mean, we saw a pandemic which was affecting all walks of life, including business and the way companies were buying and selling. But the way trade shows developed, or the way the market of trade shows developed, has started before that. So there was a certain decline that was visible already in the 2000s, and maybe this decline peaked during the pandemic, and it came back. And like the economic cycle in general in several other industries, companies and economies are recovering now from the downturn. It's not yet clear whether the trade fairs can go back to their peaks in the 80s and 90s. But what I feel in the CRM industry, in the industries of related software solutions, that the sheer complexity makes people want to touch and feel again. I mean, like 10 years ago, the CRM market is about, it was technical buying processes, and we would typically talk to IT departments, IT experts. For them, they don't need to come to a trade show. They know what they're talking about. It was all about IT expertise. Nowadays, with changing decision-making processes, and sales leaders and marketing and customer service leaders buying CRM tools, less experienced, less tech savvy, they really like to come to trade fairs and inform themselves about the options, including artificial intelligence. I mean, who would understand these things alone by browsing the internet? And when they come to your booth, for them it's they either identify, oh yes, this is what I was hoping for, or sometimes they say, oh no, I was looking for a different solution, but at least now I know after being introduced at your booth. And so yeah, I like trade fairs. I'm happy that they're back. I'm happy that I'm back on the Hannover Messe in April and several other events. I want to miss them.
Now, there are these statistics that say that 60% of the buyer's journey, more than 60% of the buyer's journey is already done before there's any contact. So which part of the buyer's journey, any contact with a salesperson, which part of the buyer's journey does a trade fair then belong to? Is this the remaining 30+%, or is it part of the 60%?
Depending on the trade fair. So the Hannover Messe is an industry trade fair, and 95% of the audience are engineers or technical personnel. And we had people at the booth who didn't know anything about customer relationship management at all before, and then they came, okay, you're selling stuff. Once I'm here, please introduce me to the concept, and then they see the technical opportunities and their business challenges, and they start to combine these things. So before there's a buying process, there's always a moment where you realize there's business problems, and you see there's a solution somewhere, and then they start, this becomes you see the context. And so I would say, in terms of the buying process, from many, a trade fair is the first step. Companies who are already determined to buy CRM or ERP or DMS or PIM or whatever IT solutions probably go to different trade fairs, or they go to special events or participate in online events like this one.
Just that we don't sell.
It's interesting that you mention buyers coming to the shows with no strong idea of what CRM is. That's something I think our listeners should probably keep in mind, that there are always new prospects. We get all caught up in the specifics of one vendor's offering or another, or this particular module or whatnot. But there are still folks out there who are like, what is CRM and why do I need it?
Oh, absolutely. There is no, the revenue statistics in CRM is not like box office KPI or retail cash register statistics. It's always depending on whom you ask. So there's a certain, experts assume there's an annual average growth rate still of 15 to 20% in the global CRM markets. And I wasn't sure about that myself, but I saw on the industry trade fair last year, and I see it in other situations, that there's mid-sized company, we call them SMB, small to mid-sized businesses, especially in manufacturing. They come to the booth that we never had to actively generate leads in a whole company existence. They've been around for 50, 60 years, selling to, especially in the automotive industry, selling to their regular customers. And as long as there's family ties, there's relationships, they kept selling for ages. They had their technical employees, but no sales folks. And then all of a sudden, there's equities company coming in and buying the automotive customers, and maybe even buying the manufacturers themselves, the vendors, the family companies. And then all of a sudden, people start asking, where's your sales process? We never had a sales process. It was a family business. It was a handshake, an annual handshake, and that was your fiscal year. And now they realize, okay, the customers won't be around forever. They're more tightly managed by equity companies nowadays. They're not for granted. And many, many prospects told us it's the first time they ever look for a CRM tool.
And that is fascinating. If you just go back, and I would ask you chaps for two incidents where you remember Do you have a very positive remembrance to one of an inside event or a fair and exhibition you recall as a moment of specialty, and one where you would say, this was not my highlight? Thomas, I would like to ask you first. What you remember?
Well, I do think that most vendors and consultancies go into fairs with the wrong expectation. Most of them treat that as a lead generation engine, but it's, in my experience, it's awareness.
Uh-huh.
And well, that leads to disappointment.
Yeah. And do you recall one or two special events?
How about a CRM Expo or a DM Expo?
Nice.
Sorry for that jab, but you asked for it.
Yeah.
No, so really, so there are, especially if you are not a tier 1 vendor, it's more awareness. And if you come in only measuring leads, then, well, you are in for some unhappy days after.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Marshall?
Well, it's been a long time since I've been to an actual trade show. So I don't really remember specific events, but I do know that every time I was on the trade show floor, I would make some sort of connection with someone working for one of the vendors. And to me, that's very important. Having someone that you can speak to who understands what you're interested in. I mean, I was usually approaching it from a reporting point of view or as an analyst. Having someone that can feed me the information I need and be identifiable as a human being with a business card and everything has always been very important. It bothers me a little that we've lost some of that.
Yeah. I would like to share two special events with you. The one is 20 years ago. It was just a week before 9/11. It was the DCI show in New York, where I was there in person. And you can imagine, I just was sitting on my desk when the first plane hit one of the towers. And I recalled that we have been there on top in the restaurant after the successful DCI event. And that was one trigger. The other was that the last CeBIT, I was a big fan of CeBIT, and I was there from my pre-job, let's say, role before I joined in 1989 a computer company, Séduzy Compagnie des Machines Bull, Hannibal Bull. And from then on, I was constantly, with no breaks, dead or alive, on CeBIT. And I might recall one where I had a little boost from Update just over a hat over Kiefer and fighting in that legendary Hall 4. And the last one was the one in 2017, which was the summer bit, when they then decided to change the concept and put it into the bin. Those were my two experiences, I recall. And yes, I share the stuff on the expectation management, Thomas, because as a smaller vendor, it was good to have some contacts. Every potential contact which had an honest interest was a real nice win. Yeah. So
let's look at it a little from the other side. On Andreas, what do you suggest that a visitor should put his mind or her mindset into?
Oh, good question.
Being on the vendor side.
Yeah, again, depending on your field of interest, for many companies or for many professional exhibitors, it's like a temperature check whenever, and Ralph and I spoke about it the other day, when you look at Germany and the political climate currently, in the way in the press and in politics, people are looking down on German economy just because we had 2 recessions, and technically 2 recessions, still growth, but below a certain measure which they define a recession. So it's not as bad as it sounds. That it can be depressing to people when you visit one of the 100. I think there was 180 trade fairs in Germany alone in 23, according to the AUMA, the Association of trade shows in Germany. Yeah. When you with I think 16 million attendance per year, I mean that's the total of all most big German cities. All as expressed as trade show audience. I think you can be proud of what you see. So on the Hannover Messe, there's one hall for mobility technology. There's one hall for compression technology. You see all the proud logos of German family-run and also equity-run companies. And every day when I left the show, it's a 5-day show, 1 week. And I felt the same about the CeBIT in the day, Ralph. I felt, how proud can we be about the innovation energy in our country, about those proud companies? It gives you a total opposite sense of what's being conveyed in the media. And so that's one thing. If you go to a trade fair, you come back with a positive mind, the positive spirit. And then for what most visitors do is a temperature check out the market, the competition, the potential. You always get great inspiration, no matter if you're on a trade fair in your own trade, on a different trade. I never get back home without a good idea of how to run the next campaign, how to to suggest product innovations to our developers. I can't remember any event as strong in that regard as an industry trade fair. The CeBIT, maybe to add to the anecdote, because you mentioned the ROI. I was in 2 companies in this in the 2000s. I was working for 2 companies, and both decided at the time to drop their booth at the CeBIT. Both were exhibitors at the CeBIT, and both companies decided in quick succession, just after I switched jobs, to drop their presence and both regretted it. Then ultimately the CeBIT was gone, but both regretted it because they were indeed measuring the return on investment on the leads alone. I mean, both were big brands. When you're a big brand, you might not depend on trade fairs as much as if you were a small brand with less awareness. But I think in 2024, companies have realized that the value of a trade fair is a lot more. It's to be visible. It's to tell the story. We have been, dear manufacturers, we have been on your trade show. We have earned the credibility in your trade. And you can tell the story on those 5 days. You can the story for the months to come. So whenever I leave a trade show, I'm taking off pictures, made my little films, I can use and reuse them for the many next months to come. So the value of a trade fair for me, it's not only to be on the fair and see what I can sell on the fair, but it's the story I can tell for the rest of the year.
Yeah. And there is some nostalgic aspect I would like to add, because last year you shared a picture from 2001 or 2002 when you were in CeBIT and making like one of the Hampelmanns, stretching your legs and your arms in a pose. And as well, there is a differentiation between the development of the fairs, such as if you imagine that SAP in 2017 was not a product feature presenting company, but they went there with a Ferris wheel, and it looked like a bit Jahrmarkt. Sorry for not. It was really fun to visit the SAP booth, have some snacks, and get into contact with people which were extremely knowledgeable. it was not the symptom I had where I'm most frustrated, either if I'm going for a point of purchase or to a fair, that I have uneducated personnel which are telling me the stuff I can read in the brochure. I expect more. Coming back to the mindset of the visitor, what should he expect?
Which ties into this comment, right? So you meet with decision makers, you learn nuggets, and get informed about missed opportunities. Or, well, get some knowledge that you didn't have before from a visitor point of view. But how does that translate to the vendor point of view? So you said, Andreas, you just said that you are reusing stuff, in quotes.
Yeah.
Videos, images, whatever. Yeah. So now in these days, everything is about measurement. And if you don't measure leads, what do you measure?
We do measure leads, and we do measure follow-up business with business that was either created on the trade fair or in the run-up of the follow-up. Every lead that can be tied to the trade fair, to a campaign. We do measure them, and we make sure that the revenue is higher than the cost of the trade fair. But for the company I currently work in, we have specialized on the manufacturing as a key vertical industry last year. And so how can you be credible in an industry? You can claim that we provide CRM tools for manufacturing, and they can believe you, they might not believe you. But when you're in the trenches, if you put your logo in competition with the many booths around you, and last year we were between Microsoft and Google and several business consultants.
Small ones,
Really small ones, right?
Small ones. If you stick your head out in this competition, in the hustle and the bustle of Hall 17, in where all the IT solutions and manufacturing are, it's a certain proof that you're serious about it. And so for me, the way I see it is as a commitment that I'm serious with those companies, with ththose prospects. And whenever I mentioned, whenever companies ask me, what makes you so special in manufacturing? And I say, because we are where you are. We come to you. You don't need to follow us on the web and believe in our story, but we are visible. You can come to the booth and you can see the solution.
Yeah, but again, so apart from the obvious ones, number of leads and attributable revenue that hopefully comes out of the participation in the trade fair, if it's about awareness, what are you looking at then? And how do you see that your visibility has increased?
Yeah, so by the market share, for example, by the market share of manufacturers in among the customers. So the share of manufacturers in Sugar CRM customers has always been around 20%, 15 to 20%. It's an all-purpose software. So there's almost any target group represented in our among Sugar customers. But in DACH, particularly, that rate has gone up to 30+%. So within 1 year, we managed to convince manufacturers that they have a special place in our heart. So that's a strong KPI. We keep tracking it every month.
Okay, so it's the distribution of relevant industries.
Right, the leads that come in.
Yeah.
We make sure that a growing number of inbound leads are in manufacturing.
Okay, so now you just said you are also as a fairly small vendor compared to the ones that you just mentioned. Most everybody is fairly small then. How do you stick out in the show? Because I mean, it's hard to compete with a behemoth.
Yeah, let's face it, we can't stick out. We can't stand out compared to. But there were so many. Just to the Google. Now Google was rather conservative booth, but Microsoft, they had a robot. Microsoft themselves don't have that high standing in manufacturing, so they made their own effort to establish themselves there. They had a robot show at the booth, and it attracted so many people. And if like 1 out of 100 visitors spends another 5 minutes to drop by at the sugar booth, that alone can keep a small company busy.
And
So
you had some swag which was particular to family dads.
Oh yeah, hang on.
And
Ooh,
moms.
we get toys.
A real teaser, because one of the things is the mindset you keep up and alive, and you use for later run videos, such as the Green Bears. Yeah,
The Green Bears. Yeah,
that was the competition, and it was like, if you have a positive impact by visiting the booth, and you saw, for instance, in touch and feel, such as what this AI is doing for me in that software, and you can explain it, and you can plant a hook, an anchor into people's mind or idea set, and they start to have an, let's say, cinema in their head, such as in thinking through what it could make happen in their environment, in their company, then you have won. Yeah, with that.
Yeah, exactly. Let me put AI in the context. So there were 3, to me anyway, in the last 10 to 15 years, there were 3, I won't call them trends because they're not exactly that, but important innovations. The first in the CRM industry was the cloud. Cloud technology came in like 10 to 15 years ago, and people didn't know about cloud, about the cloud security, the way it would impact your customer data, the way it would also boost the performance of your customer database, and documenting all the activities around it, the pipeline, blah blah. The second was GDPR 2018, the data privacy legislation in Europe, which was pretty tough, and it was abstract for many people. Now, when you talk to them, they typically ask, "Is your software GDPR compliant?" And yes, it is. But it's not enough of an answer. What's that anyway? What does it mean anyway? And when you speak to a person, you can use simple examples. I can show them around in the software. But this certainly needs some guidance. I think the way the data security is publicly treated is always, like insurance companies like to advertise their software. It has to do with fears, with risks. At the end of the day, I haven't heard about a major disaster with CRM tools in Europe, but it's good to show customers around, and this can be done personally very well because it indeed deals with risk. And the third trend / impact is, of course, artificial intelligence, and it too is an abstract concept. It can be everything. It can be a little thing in RFQ documents. Company asks us what the feature set in the CRM software is, and can you do AI? So, of course we can. I'm not sure if this is the answer you want, because what do you want AI to do for you? And then you have to take the conversation, back down to the basics. Now, what's your challenge anyway? Where do you want to be? What's the gap between it? And let's see if AI, alongside the many old-fashioned CRM virtues, can help you. Like for me, still today, if you speak to the kind of manufacturers we discussed on a manufacturing trade fair, for some, a visit report that is electronically stored and archived is still an innovation. Like the folks, like the 4 of us who have been dealing with the market for ages, for us it's an old feature. For many companies, this is still a big innovation. I need to respect that.
And that is also one of the hints, such as the visit report, which helps you while you are talking with the potential client or the potential candidate. You do a structured information run. That is my experience. And from that, I qualify who is getting the pen or the beer, because I invest not only time, and I honor his time and respect his time, but I would like to identify by an intelligent conversation if we might be a helpful match or that we could be useful. How do you do this? And to answer the question of a fantastic colleague and LinkedIn user with 100+ visitors, how do you qualify the right leads to give away the bear and not the pen? To say so.
The red pen you just held up.
Yeah, well, I'm still a very loyal user, yeah, and I have also these ones.
You mean
and
this?
The latest edition.
This.
Yeah. The latest.
If you don't have the black. You're privileged. You're privileged.
Yeah, I am privileged. Trust me. I have my connections to the US, as you were in a fair where you had craftsmen and manufacturers, and this is a multi-toolkit, not only a pen. You can have a wage, the water wage, and put things right. So this is the way of smart things they remember. Yeah. How do you qualify?
Back to that one, yeah. How?
Tricky.
That was for you, Andreas.
I was
I know
ignoring the question.
You are the experts. We are only the ones who swing the whip.
Lead qualification.
For easier reading, I just projected it again.
Yeah.
As I agreed with Thomas, it is a valuable question aside of the typical marketing challenging questions that could be, as you have been in a financial role as in your business lifetime as well, the one question your CFO or the man who gives, or the lady who gives you the money in your company, it's ladies in the most cases, which give you money or don't give you money. So how do you justify?
Yeah, there's one practical answer and one deep answer. So on a trade fair, lock them away. Lock them in the closet, put them away. Don't make them visible. Not even on a Friday. People are on a hunt on Friday. You want to grab the remains, and they want to drink the remains too. In terms of qualification by criteria, by business criteria, this is a lot tougher. There's a big number of leads coming in who have no buying, like in any B2B industry, you have no buying intention, and you have to tell who is really a serious buying customer. We have qualification criteria in place, but I think that's the same as in any B2B market. Is there a serious buying intention? Is there a certain decision power? Is the budget available? Is there a certain knowledge? Because if people don't know anything about CRM, it's very likely that they might as well mean an ERPs, which happens very often. They think they're looking for a CRM, but they're in fact looking for a billing or a logistics or ERP software. And before you get involved in the sales process, you should identify them.
Well, how do you suggest making sure, as far as possible, that not so many, from your perspective, duds arrive, so that the likelihood that there's an interesting person is coming, for you interesting person is coming, as opposed to just throwing out a big net and then sort it after?
Yeah, on a trade fair, this is indeed this is quite labelsome because it's the conversation. But it's the purpose of being on a trade fair, the conversation. When it's digital, and for Sugar Serum, this is still okay, we're not a market leader who would have to who are facing thousands and thousands of leads coming to the web page, out of which 5% might be interested in buying. In sugar, we can still handle the quantity, but of course, as much as you can automate in the lead cycle, the more valuable your pipeline is. There's always a trade-off, I think, between having a strong or weak lead conversions, and this is this is up to your choice. If you bring a lot of leads into your pipeline, the pipeline looks massive, but the conversion will be low, and you will waste a lot of manpower. On the other hand, if you qualify very toughly and just a few leads get into your pipeline, the pipeline is thin, but they are more probable, and you can invest your manpower more probably. But then, of course, the risk is higher, because if there's 3 big promising leads and you lose all of them, then the pipeline is gone. So a pipeline in a conversion rate is a very, is a KPI that can be corrupted a lot. It's a result of your strategy, not so much like a matter of fact that just happens. If you ask me, I'm more for a tougher qualification of leads, because that keeps looking for a more polite way than, what was your word for it, Thomas? The duds?
Dud, yeah, DUD, which is
It keeps
probably
the
a bit
duds.
also unpolite. Yeah,
it keeps the duds out of your pipeline.
Well, I don't want to make it another waste center or a dustbin or a silo of toxic content. I would like to have it as a valuable gold or diamond mine, and therefore carving and getting into the diamonds out of the stones is some tough work. And just speaking about my own expertise, as I was in different roles, not only as a sales rep, but as a marketing responsible person, and I trained my sales reps, such as, you have 20 minutes in the maximum. Now make something out of it and give the person who is investing time in you a fantastic feeling. And how do you achieve that? By the right, let's say, frameworking, or how do you place it as you are an unorthodox sales representative and regional director of your company, such as you ask them, where is the pain? Where does the shoe hurt in your organization, to say so?
Yeah, that's indeed the first question. Why are you coming to us? If it's an inbound lead, you speak differently if it's an outbound lead, of course. If it's an inbound lead, try to get to the root cause of the selection process. Often companies make you believe that they know all about it. They're just formally going through a selection process, and you happen to be in it as a vendor. But in 9 out of 10 cases, when you accept that and you get closer to the deal, there will be confusion, because they did not know as much as they pretend, and they are stumbling over all sorts of obstacles, and you're not getting the deal because they are not as well organized. So no matter how professional they appear, very early in the sales process, I'm trying to create a moment of honesty in a face-to-face, or not in front of a big group and not at the trade fair, but in a one-to-one conversation. And okay, yeah, I understand this is all what you want. Typically, the list of requirements is at least by 1/3 inflated compared to what they really need. And say, okay, what's your 2/3? 2/3 of what? Yeah, 2/3 of your real needs. These are all our needs. No, it's not your needs. You would be the first company in the history of CRM who would implement all that you ask for. And okay, but I would put it in nicer language. And then you find out, okay, that's your problem. So out of your 200 requirement lists, 100 might be not that critical to achieve your aim. What's your minimum viable product you want to have at the end of the year? That's another good question. If you had a product with a bare minimum, which is complex enough to implement, what would those benefits be? It's also a good test question. Not all prospects are happy about this kind of conversation, particularly nowadays with many business people buying, sales leaders and service and marketing leaders. In the old days, it was a little easier because the IT folks who used to buy CRM tools 20 years ago, they knew quite well what they needed, and it was a conversation among experts. If you talk to a sales director who follow his or her impulse, a gut feeling, it's a little. You have to get on the same level of conversation first.
We have a different setting of the buying center, and that is a very valuable observation you just shared with us. During we had this with Christy Tupper, and we had this with Jodie Spencer in several approaches, such as the decision makers differ since COVID, such as the department leaders, which have a job to be done with their teams, got a more important decision-making role and get budgets at their hands as their superiors were no longer available for decision support. So there is a change.
Yeah.
And how many presentations, for instance, just to give us a touch and feel, have you done as a smaller vendor last year?
Oh, on the trade fair. So we have 2 monitors for demos, and we try to organize it a little more efficiently this year. So we're planning to announce like 3 or 4 demo hours, like in the morning at 9 for the first, rush of visitors, and then maybe around noontime and 2 in the afternoon. So it doesn't have to be that ad hoc anymore. But yeah, that would be lovely. Of course, there will always be ad hoc conversations, but we'd happy to have 4 demos a day.
That is a concept which worked for some of your informer days on the CeBIT very nicely.
Yeah.
One of the British driven vendors, when they had a presentation standardized, changing with a topic of 20 minutes at the beginning of the hour, and then they collected the visitors and gave them one-to-one talking opportunities. And even if you strolled by to a cafe with the laptop, you kept them in conversation.
In how far there are events and events. Some are fully present, some are hybrid, some are offline, online. Sorry,
Offsite.
I need more coffee. I need more coffee. So,
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's a typical.
In how far, from a vendor perspective, do you approach them differently?
And what are your expectations? If you invest more money, more time, more resource, smart prep,
More people,
a campaign for an in-person event, from my perspective and experience over nearly 30 years, does differ a bit from the inbound-driven campaigning torture tour.
Yeah, true. I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure I can give a general answer, because as a company, we're always trying new things, and it's a learning. Like the whole event management is a evolving process. I personally prefer trade fairs very much, because if you do an online event, and you guys are you're a lot more expert in these things than I am. You need to build a reputation for it. There's a lot of distraction on the internet. There's 100 of events on LinkedIn competing. You have to be very, very good. You have to be very known. You have to have a good reach. Just the other day, the LinkedIn algorithm was tightened a little. It's getting tougher to get audience into your events. On trade fairs, there's, as a rule, there's thousands of people. So they're around, they're walking through the hall. It's just a matter on how you get them interested and how to make them remember you. And for me personally, as rather on the extrovert side of human beings, this is my preferred playing field.
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm a hobby musician, as a hobby musician, if the audience is around, they might be not engaged when, in the morning, they might not be engaged at the start of the gig, but they're around, and if you're good, you can attract their attention.
Thank you very much. Get them out of their phlegmatism and get them into action, and make them engage. Yeah,
exactly.
So it means if you're going to an event or preparing an event, there is a warm-up phase, a hot phase, and a cool down.
Oh, there certainly is, psychologically. So the Monday is you're building the booths are being built on the Sunday, and you equip the booth, and set up the coffee machine, and you position the brochures at
First things first. Coffee machine, yeah.
And on the Monday, then you realize all the things you've forgotten.
Yeah.
And you have to rush to shop and buy stuff, and to speak to the event management. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, by definition, are when the halls are most populated. It's the key of the event. And on a Friday, which is the cooling down phase in general, we still have. I remember last year in Hanover on the Friday, all the local companies were around because there was a train strike. And so the local companies, people came by bicycle or by the car, or buses or whatever. It was still a lovely day at the booth with a different audience. So there's always surprises, and you get to meet people on the trade fair from different booths. And Friday night you hang out with them. We have to get rid of the liquor, so let's have a beer together. So for me, that's the final. Always the grand finale of a trade fair.
Is there, now you interpreted warm up a little bit into preparing the booth and mentally preparing yourselves, but is there also these kinds of, or are there also these kinds of phases in engaging prospects differently? Or is it the same, basically the same through all days? So do you need to warm up the visitors of the fair? Or do you engage them differently on the Monday as opposed to the Thursday or Wednesday? Or is that pretty much all the same process?
It's all the same. The hall 17 is at the back of so people, typically came through 6 or 7 halls already, so they're warmed up. They have all seen the same things, and we don't have to. There's no certain dynamics which you have to. At least I can't remember any. So of course, there's sometimes the booth is empty. Sometimes there's a big group coming in, and all the screens are busy, and everybody is engaging, and you have barely time for them. And then there's nobody around noontime, and you have to make sure there's enough staff around to manage the peaks.
That's actually an interesting one. How do you deal with surges?
Statistically, so I'm checking these things. So I'm reading stuff about trade fairs in general, and there's certain peak times of day where there's peaks statistically after the noon break. On trade fairs, still, like in companies, I always thought, why is everybody eating at 12? I mean, people are queuing up at the cafeteria. Why on earth would anybody eat at 12? In a company with their own cafeteria. I never got the point, but it works absolutely the same way on trade fairs. Everybody's lining up at the cafeterias or at the what's in there, the food stalls on the trade fair ground. It's absolutely the same. And 1 p.m. everybody's energized and coming back. So at 1 p.m. there's a peak. At 4 p.m. there's a peak, and typically in the morning at 9.
Now, how do you deal with it?
Oh, I make sure there's the people around. Not everybody who's coming from my company or from solution vendors. Not everybody is at the booth all the time, because I want everybody to,
gather intel.
Yeah, to socialize with other vendors in the industry, or maybe establish partnerships, or just be curious. I mean, your own company, but it's always exciting to meet up with. So what I often do is I visit other booths. Could be totally unrelated businesses, and I make my little selfies with them. And so we've been on the trade show. We have nothing in common, but we've been on the trade show together. And so if you mix the audiences of both companies in one blog post and LinkedIn, this alone creates noise, and it's great. Yeah, fantastic. I'm a socializer.
Creates noise or signal, because noise is not necessarily good.
Well,
or is everything that's loud good?
Everything that's loud is good. Yeah.
Yeah, but as an observer, you very much create signal, as it has rememberable impact, such as you get reposted not only from your partners, but also from people which have been there and are reposting, and you use it for the warm-up phase, which is starting now for the upcoming HMI, and share posts such as 2 people at the empty stand, such as early coughing at 8. We are on the booth and we are preparing mindset and spirit for the first flush, which is approaching.
Right. I remember from scene from last year, there was one competitor, a German CRM vendor, Adito. I'm sure you know them, and they were in the hall next door, and I went there. We had a chat, and we took a picture together. And so we're competitors, but we are in the same boat on the trade fair, trying to make business here. And this was totally off the beaten path in social media, and it got thousands of clicks just by the fact alone that here's folks who compete with one another, but who share the same experience, who are proud of it. And it was a fantastic moment.
And sharing the coffee and helping us with the mustard for the Weißwurst is a very important tradition with Adito. Trust me.
Yeah. I'm vegetarian though.
Yeah, well,
I only have the mustard.
Some kind of an attitude, but you could help with the mustard, right? You are.
Exactly.
Well, Weißwurst is probably also served with pretzels, so they are veg.
Okay. And going back to partner involvement, how many partners did you have last year on the booth, and what you plan this year?
Yeah, we're going to have one sugar partner a day. So there's 4 partners. Friday is just myself with direct business and at the booth, but on the other 4 days we have 1 partner a day. And those sugar partners, software solution partners, they are specialized in certain fields as well. I always encourage our solution partners to specialize themselves, because the CRM market can be a dangerous place if you want to be a one-size-fits-all solution. Then you get lost between the experts, because most CRM vendors have specialized themselves in either logistics or automotive or healthcare or financial services. And so they all present a different profile every day, and this is what makes it interesting for me as well, to see how they compete in different niches and how they showcase the strength in, for example, the healthcare market. We have one solution partner, login software in Austria, and they have specialized in the CRM market, in the healthcare market, a market that no one would ever believed could be one of the most growing vertical market for CRM solutions. And it's fantastic how well they do.
It has always been a very specialized market, to say so, and there were always some companies addressing it. One of my former employers was one of them, and over the counter is a different story than the real in-depth pharma and healthcare area. But I absolutely agree that it is one of the changers in the game where if you are present and you show your flag, you have a fair opportunity. So what is your expectation on that show in Berlin next week? It's next week, right?
It's next week. I have to say it's the first time we're there. I don't know what to expect really, but what I am expecting is that as opposed to the Hannover Messe, to the industry trade fair, it's a very specialized trade fair.
Yeah.
And the people who come to the booth will be more educated in what they're looking for, and the conversations will be on a different level. So this, but again, the purpose is the same: to show commitment, to demonstrate to the trade, to demonstrate to the healthcare market. Look, we're not only talking about being skilled in what you need for CRM, but we're always where the action is. We're also where you are. We're coming to you.
Strong point.
Yeah, we invest in the campaign.
Coming back to different types of events, there are not also the gamut between on-premise and online events. There's also the diversification of vendor-specific events, then target industry events, and source industry events, like DMXCO, for example. It's source industry from marketers for marketers, basically. So HMI is on the other side, that's looking at the target industry from your perspective there. So what are decision criteria to go for one or the other type of events?
I think it's indeed, what the purpose is. If you're looking for short-term deals, you're going to, some of the VIP events with selected audience, which is like a speed dating for business. You don't go there for your awareness. You don't go for short-term business opportunities. The Hannover Messe is more like a midterm investment. If you're doing a webinar on LinkedIn, for example, this is you can probably better than I am. You're approaching. It's very subject matter driven. So you dedicate these shows, or you dedicate these sessions or podcasts to a certain topic, and you want to make people. You want to get people interested in that. Of course, the selection of the topic is very exciting today because there's so many new stuff. If you run a session on artificial intelligence, you can make sure there's a bigger audience, but you want to make sure that they know what it's about, because there's 100,000 angles from where they could come. If you want to make it relevant, you have to be specific, and I realize it's difficult for many. Are we going to run a session on artificial intelligence? Yeah, congratulations. But what is it about in detail? What does it mean for me? So I think with each technology trend, event management needs to be reinvented. And we see that in artificial intelligence a lot.
Yes, sir. Okay. The time is up, I'd say. So we are
last words.
Early to pretty darn good today. Time for the famous last words. Do you take them up, Marshall, or do you want me?
Well, I was just going to ask Andreas,
There we are.
now that we are post-pandemic, how do you see trade shows changing over the next few years? What do we have to look forward to?
I think the quality is getting higher. Like Ralph or Thomas, you mentioned the CFOs in companies. Going back to the old engagement with people traveling and, people, as exhibiting products on trade shows. In German, we say, die drehen den Euro zweimal um. They think it's the same qualification process. They qualify those engagements very toughly. They're going to think twice. So the trade fairs have to become a lot better. I remember the miserable state the CeBIT was in the last with several halls just full of computer accessories. There were halls where Asian manufacturers were selling desktop computer houses or keyboards. And if a trade show comes down to that, this stuff, this is retail stuff. So in the future, the ability of vendors to explain the technology has to become a lot more refined. And so I see, Marshall, to your question, I see the quality significantly rising in trade shows.
I hope that you're right.
So you can come back to some of them.
Oh, yeah, certainly. I think that brings us to the end of today's CRMKonvo. It was a quick hour, but an informative and enjoyable one. Andreas, thank you very much for your time and insight, as always. Thank you also to our audience for listening and participating. We're going to go backstage now, but tune in next week when we will be diving into personalization and the hype surrounding it with our very good guest, Dr. Graham Hill. So until then, stay safe and be well.
Stay safe.
Bye.